so loud. Yes. Hello, everyone.
I love that intro. That is phenomenal.
It's very intense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I love
like it. Yeah. It's maybe next time we'll tone it down a little bit so it's not as loud, but like I said before, we're doing it live, so it is what it is. But everyone, welcome to the first episode, edition, stream, etc. of RTVcron. This is a monthly live stream that we're doing the last Thursday of every month, where we bring in someone to do a workshop. This week we got Jeff Tomkiewicz. I got his name right on the first try. Who's going to talk through influence ops. It's going to be a really good workshop. I know he put a lot of good work into setting up VMs and just really. I know it's going to be a great workshop. So first one, RTVcron will be doing these until the last one will be July, right before DEF CON. So we will do a couple more of these. But this is the inaugural episode. So welcome, everyone. Welcome. I'm glad you could be here.
Super happy to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't know who I am, I'm Corey. I'm director of workshops. With us tonight, we got D Sync, who is our vice president. Good old Mike Hacks Things with who is the president of RTV, and then Michael Downley, the doorman. You may or may not have heard him yelling in the hallway in prior DEF CONs. Michael is the director of volunteers. So
director of screaming at people in the hallway outside the Red Team Village. We do other things than that, but that's one of my primary duties.
You do it well. I mean, you do. You do a good
job.
It's all
the theater training. You project with your diaphragm.
Yes, very good, very good. First episode. For those of you that don't know, we are, us at the Village. We are just right in the middle of planning. We are just kicking all kinds of things off. From the call for workshops is open this year, which is new. Is we're doing a call for tactics, which are kind of activities that people who are coming through the Village can kind of sit down and try out, maybe mess around for 15 minutes or so and just kind of hang out and try something out. That is new this year. We have our call for sponsors, which is open, a call for volunteers, which I'll let Michael talk more about that. But we are in it. We meet every week. We're planning. We're getting everything ready. We're pretty hyped for August. And there's just a lot of stuff that goes on, right? So I know Mike's been busy. You might have seen our new website, right, Mike? We just released a new website. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, website's coming along. We just pushed some new changes today to make all of the call for everything prominent right at the top there. So if you're interested, as Corey said, in workshops, the tactics, volunteering, sponsorship, right at redteamvillage.io, and just check out the content at the top there and join us in one way or another, right? Whether you're attending, whether you're volunteering, or you want to put something together, show something off there in the workshop or in the tactic, everything's open and available. And get in sooner than later. We did have to turn away volunteers last year, and I think some workshops as well, just because we get overwhelmed with things. So our goal this year is to get more people into the Village, right? As Corey said, really focused on that asynchronous tactic side of things, along with the more formalized workshops, similar to what you're going to see here tonight on Cron. But I wanted to say, Corey, you kind of started this RTVcron thing after the overflow. Like, what was the driver to start this monthly series here? Did you have any particular things, or just from the success of overflow?
No, I mean, just from the success of overflow, we had a pretty good response to that. Everybody seemed to have a really good time. We just want to make sure that we know that sometimes there could be logistical issues, we'll say, when you come to the Village. And so we want to just make sure that we're doing as much as we can publicly. We figured streams were a good way to do that. The overflow event was kind of our first trial run, just kind of see how things go, see if we could actually pull it off. We did, and we got a really good response, and a lot of people watched and took part in it. So we figured Crown was the next logical step, so here we are today.
Love it. Yeah, and it fits right in with our mission, right? We're here to just make content available to people, regardless of where you're coming from, what your aspirations are, whether it's training, whether it's workshops, techniques, knowledge, tactics, whatever it is. that's what we're here to promote. So what you'll be seeing from the village here is a little bit more activity outside of DEF CON, such as things like Cron. Other events, we're going to be at Hack Space Con coming up in May with a CTF and with just some village presence there. And then, we'll see what other little activities and things pop up. But our goal is to be a little bit more accessible than just through DEF CON as it has been in the past.
Yeah, for sure. So, Michael, what can you tell us about volunteering at the village?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I got started being involved in the Red Team Village. The first DEF CON I ever went to, honestly, I was pretty overwhelmed. I walked around pretty aimlessly, didn't really know what to do, and I saw this long line for some sort of gathering of people. I didn't quite know what it was at the time, and then that DEF CON kind of came and went, and then as I made my way through the offensive security world, I heard about the Red Team Village and how there were some opportunities to volunteer, and showing up, it seemed like a really great group of people, and I just wanted to, it started off as, I want to have a plan for DEF CON for something that's, I wanted to get out of DEF CON as much as I could, so I ended up volunteering and staying around the village for basically the entire time that I did my first volunteer tour, I guess. But that doesn't necessarily need to be the path that somebody who might want to volunteer for the village. They don't necessarily have to camp out there the entire time. I think it's a great way for people who are maybe a little more new to the offensive security space, or maybe in some sort of part of the tech industry and want to pivot into the offensive security space. This is a great way to meet people. One of the hardest parts of our jobs in the offensive security space is that initial foothold getting in. Well, what better way to get in than to be kind of shoulder to shoulder with people who are teaching workshops and teaching cutting edge techniques, and being with a group of people that's as well connected as the people in the Red Team Village. I think that's one of the biggest, if I'm selling being a volunteer, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest intangible perks of volunteering. But doing the Red Team Village at DEF CON, because we're one of the biggest villages in the con, it takes a village, it takes a whole lot of people to do it, and we have a whole bunch of different roles that people can help out and make the village as functional as possible. I had somebody reach out to me who was maybe a little more on the they were maybe a little more introverted. We have roles for all sorts of people. If you like doing crowd control and need an outlet to maybe scream a little and exercise your need for authority, we do have some crowd control roles. And one of the biggest changes that we want to make this year is by making the village a lot more accessible because of the new venue, the Las Vegas Convention Center. It's great for lots of things, but it's definitely changed how we've had to think about capacity, and we're rethinking the village to be more accessible and to be able to craft the village so that we can have as many people come in and come through as possible. So, with those changes, we need lots of people on deck to be able to help with that process. So, there's lots of tangible, intangible benefits of volunteering. But if maybe you're on the fence and you're coming to DEF CON, but you're not really sure what you want to do with your DEF CON, I think this is a great way to get a foothold in your experience, whether it's just your DEF CON experience, or if you're trying to get into the offensive security space. This is a really great group of people to be connected to and learn from.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Well said. So lots of opportunities to volunteer at the village. Lots of opportunities to submit workshops, tactics. Lots of opportunities to sponsor as well. So we've taken a lot of feedback over the past few years. We feel like we just keep iterating, and we think that this year is going to be the best year. We think every year we get a little bit better,
Right.
and so we're looking forward to it. Right. So yeah. So Mike, Desync, Michael, anything else you think we should say before we bring our speaker in? No.
I am looking forward to this one. It's we're coming out of the gate swinging, I feel like, with this first workshop. So super excited to see what we have planned here, and looking forward to following along here.
Yeah.
I
learning about-
apologize to the folks in chat that were trying to get the link. I can't get it to paste, so we'll have to put it on screen or the banner or something.
It'll be on the banner. Yep.
Okay.
There we go.
Excellent. There it is.
Beautiful.
Oh wow, that's magic.
All right. So Mike, Desync, Michael, appreciate you guys stopping by, saying hello for a little bit. We're gonna bring our speaker on. Any last words before you go? No? Silence.
Looking forward to
3-6
seeing
party
folks in
too.
August.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you guys. We'll see you later.
Awesome. Thanks, Corey.
All right. So let's bring our speaker on here. Jeff Tomkiewicz. Yes.
Hey.
Yes. Jeff's going to talk about tactical pretexting. So my favorite part of being a red teamer is the sketchy stuff, and being able to come up with believable stories while you're doing the sketchy stuff is probably the most important part. So I'm really looking forward to workshop tonight. I know you got lots of you got some supplemental materials. Desync mentioned we're going to figure out how to paste that into the chat. Who knows what happened, but we'll figure that out.
Technology.
You also see it on the bottom there, but Jeff, just want to say thanks for doing this. Appreciate you giving back to the community this way. If anybody has any questions for Jeff, please just put them in the chat, and one of us will come in and interrupt them. And Jeff, same goes with you. I'm going to drop off stream, but if you need anything, just give me an AO and I'll hop back in.
All right, cool. Okay.
You can do it. All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Cool. Thanks. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday Eve. We did it. We made it through the work week here, and now we get to kind of like sit here and learn a little something, close out the week on a good note, right? So yeah, thank you for coming out to my workshop here, Influence Ops, Tactical Pretexting. So a little bit about this workshop. This came from an article I wrote last fall with a buddy of mine, Robert Pimentel, over at Hacker Hermanos. And, we come up with a joint article here. And I feel like, this is a good skill to learn, especially if you're doing social engineering, because the information out there, there's some stuff, good courses, all that, but there's always, and you'll see there are different parts to it. It isn't just picking up a phone, sending an email, normally think here. There are very different intricacy parts, to all this. So here's just one of them I'm going to show tonight. So with that all said, let us begin. And yes, if you haven't, you can download the VM on my GitHub. That's flashing across the screen. Download the VirtualBox one. You'll see directions, all that on there. Reason I say that, it will work with VMware. We had a little snafu with the VMware image, so we're trying to figure that out. But believe it or not, the VMware one will work with VMware and VirtualBox. So yeah, download the VirtualBox. Cool. Or did I can? All right. So what are we going to go over tonight? All right, we're going to talk about introduction to pretexting. What is it? We're going to go over historical roots, where this all originally came from, because yes, it is older than a lot of people think. And then we're going to talk about modern day, all that, what's kind of going on there. So then we're going to roll it around into the foundations of pretexting. All right, what does it consist of? All right, we'll talk a little bit about open source intelligence, human intelligence, stuff like that. And then finally, we're not finally, but we're then going to roll into the meat and potatoes, I like to say. Excuse me. And we're going to build our personas and our scenario development. We're going to learn the actual skills of building that pretext by doing that. And then if we have a little time, or if anyone wants to share, we'll go over, role playing it. And then actually, like, while you're actually performing this pretext, like how to adapt and what are some things you should look out for that come up, because things do like come up. It's tough. All right. And then finally, we'll do a little reflection and wrap up and talk about what we've learned here. So we good? All right. Let us begin. Oh, actually, a little bit about myself. I got a little too excited there. Jeff Tomkiewicz, offensive security engineer for Fortune 40 in healthcare. I do all sorts of stuff. Social engineering, physical, penetration testing, all that good stuff. And these skills, especially pretexting, do come in handy. So chapter 1, introduction to pretexting. So, at its core, what is pretexting? Okay, this is a technique in social engineering, right, where an attacker creates a false narrative or assumes an identity to like target an individual or company or so to divulge like sensitive information or get unauthorized access, especially if you're doing like a physical test to conduct further nefarious actions. Probably with your red team, as they sit and wait for you to plug that device in to get a call back, stuff like that. But this method, though, it heavily relies on the attacker's ability to craft and maintain a convincing story that aligns with the target's expectations, beliefs, their environment. All right. So it has a lot of like historical roots and everything. A lot of these practices with pretexting trace back to ancient, times. Okay. Where practices of espionage would like take place, where you'd have spies that would like adopt disguises, fabricate stories, infiltrate enemy camps, villages, whatever it is. Once they're trying to extract that information or sabotage like operations, whether it be military or even just common, civil, operations. Some notable like examples, would be back a long time ago in feudal Japan, the shinobi and ninja. They were really good at that because they were primarily used as assassins, so they have to infiltrate and do all that. And then another example, and we'll talk about this more at the end of this section, Operation Mincemeat back in World War II. Really interesting stuff. So then, obviously, back then they would face a lot of, you could say, like physical face-to-face contact and everything, right? So, they would use ruses as a trusted official, an employee, whatever. But again, the success solely relied on the attacker's ability to be able to blend into that environment, understand the social norms, or communicate that convincingly as well. All right, there's a lot to it. So then, as time went on and everything, we, obviously the digital transformation, pretexting has expanded from that face-to-face, as I previously mentioned in our past, to like a wide range of online and telecommunication, based like techniques. Modern pretexting, occurs like, as we all know, like email, phone calls, social media, whatever, platform there is out there. Just think remote interaction. In addition, we have scalability, right? That's another factor here. So we can now target multiple folks, individuals, organizations, you name it. And that's what some of these bad guys do. They use those automated tools and phishing kits, you name it, what's out there, right? We've got all the goods out there. Evil Engine X, you name it, But again, allows us automation, mass targeting, and, takes, but, it's a little more complex and, multi-stage. But the fact remains at the end of the day the same, okay? Like, we are focusing on the human in this case, all right? That hasn't changed, all right? We do this, through psychological manipulation, stuff like that, and as I said, mentioned before, we do this through means of phishing, vishing, or physical, impersonation. All right. All right. So why does this matter? Okay. Yeah, this is pretty important stuff. I mean, we can all guess why, but yeah, we're doing this, okay, pretexting to, for our social engineering engagements to, provide a test. We're uncovering vulnerabilities within humans, right? And we're testing their security, systems and all, but yeah, we're testing it through people. All right. Then we'll test, how do they respond? How do they, organize, do their thing, in light of, an attack or something like that. And do that. Yeah, we're testing their policies and procedures. And then obviously, this bridges that gap, the technical and human, gap when we're doing this. All right. So we obviously have some ethical considerations when doing this. All right. We are, fabricating a scenario, identity to deceive a target. We're lying, straight up. So, this can be a powerful tool. All right. Reasons are trust and deception, right? We're deceiving individuals, organizations. It's kind of like, is this right? But I mean, we got lawyers and everything. If you're doing this ethically, the right way, letters of agreement, all that are signed. So you're good there. But even in controlled environments, all right, even though we are going in with the right intention to strengthen, the organization, whatever it is, it's still the act itself can be just, received as, deceiving, employees or, with some of these folks or exploiting trust. So, we just got to, be like, cognizant of that. All right. Because some people can get embarrassed or whatever it may be. So obviously, we want to make sure we're not, the emotional, psychological impact. We're not trying to, use like fear, manipulation, things like that. Granted, the advanced persistent threats, the nation state act, they're going to probably do it, but we as, professionals, we don't, because it causes undue stress, panic, all that. And then it's just like, are they going to really learn, versus just using a more ethical manner? You got to weigh that out, look at it that way too. And so then finally, we'd like to talk about, consent and awareness, right? Not all the employees are aware that this is going on. All right. The guards, all that. Like last week I was doing one, and seriously, no lie, until the very end, like all the guards, everybody like, oh, okay, this is going on, until, we got busted and all. But yeah, a lot of them don't know, this is going on until, the handler, whoever it is on that project is coming out, the engagement, and saying, yeah, all right, we're good. Right. So yeah, they're thinking, oh, am I being manipulated or whatever? It can produce those feelings. So we just got to be aware of that. And so then finally here, as you see highlighted in red, stern writing, do not ever, when doing these pretexts, do not ever, ever impersonate law enforcement or a figure authority, government, whatever it is. All right, this is a straight up easy ticket to jail. Straight up, I'll tell you now. Even if you get the permission of the person who's running the engagement, they don't have the authority to do that. No. All right. So just keep that in mind. All right. So, we already. All right. Wow. All right. We're already here. Yeah. Okay. Before let me just go back one, because I want to talk a few ways. How do we do this? So yeah, there are ways that we can do this, like prevent these things from happening, like these bad things potentially. Obviously, we can do that through, client consent and scope definition. We, in the early stages when we're figuring this all out, we grind down and making sure, we find out what we can do, can't do, all that. It is very important there. All right. So again, and you identify those, like the senior leadership, your handler, all that. So yeah, obviously, again, we can use those non-distress, like pretext, things like that. Okay. Let's not go for manipulation, fear, or anything. Right. Like life-threatening scenarios. It's just not cool. All right. And then the other piece is, after everything's said and done, make sure those people are debriefed and like provide any support, just like, hey, this is what went on, this is why we were doing it. And it's pretty cool, because then a lot of times I haven't seen anyone really like, oh, you put me through that. No, actually more of an interest. Oh, okay. Well, what can we do better? Or, things like that. And then obviously, through all this, we want to make sure we're watching what information we're putting out there. If we do receive information, fine, we handle that, securely. We don't be a blabby mouth or, if we do come across some information, it's like secured, all that. Okay. We don't want to break the law ourselves. Like, we are in a way, but we don't want to take it too far. And then obviously, just review these ethics, with yourself. You should always be, continuously reviewing that, those ethics. If you're with a company, they do ethics reviews every year. So, just keep that in mind. So, yeah, but I just wanted to make sure, we cover that because, it's obviously give you we're doing this. Why? Well, here's why. But so now we are on activity 1. All right. So let's, if people in the chat or if one of you folks here can read off or, let's talk about like some examples of social engineering we've like encountered maybe or seen in movies. There's like tons of like movies out there. I'll tell you now, you'll see in the slides here, I do have some example of movies and stuff where it does pop up. As you can see in my example, I have Operation Mincemeat. And so what I'll show you folks now, 1 second here, is I'll pull up the VM. And if I'll show you guys where we have a sample of it, all that. Give me 2 seconds here. Log in. All right, let's share this thing. Oh, I got 2 screens. Red Team Village, that's what's up. Okay. Let's present, share screen. All right, is it screen 1? Find the right one. I thought I had this all figured out, right? So let's do the VM. Where are you? Boom. Allow. Okay. So can everyone see my screen? I hope so. Yes. Okay. All right. So here's the VM we have here for the course. Do a little customization, all that good stuff with it. So if you open up your Obsidian, we have Obsidian preloaded in there with the slides, everything. You are all set. But within that, we have our activities, workshop here, our little part here. And then chapter 1, you'll see, we talk about Operation Mincemeat. So, Operation Mincemeat, during World War II, 1943 to be exact. All right. This was going on. We're about to, do with the infamous invasion through Nazi-held Europe and then, go through the bottom part of Italy there, Sicily and all that. Problem was, though, as you all know, probably from the movies, reading history and all that, it was heavily, heavily fortified, just like Normandy out there and everything. So, big problem. So, they wanted to, hey, we're going to go ahead and craft a pretext and all that and like divert these guys, get them thinking something else. So the pretext strategy within that here was, let's go ahead. They planned on they took a dead body of and they pretty much came up with the pretext of this dead body that they were a military courier, all right, on a top secret invasion, and it crashed at sea. They'd find the body washed ashore, and they placed all sorts of fake documents and everything on them. We'll show those here as we go through. But and so once the Germans got that body and everything, they were just like, let's look over. They're like, they're going to prevent, do this invasion and everything. So essentially, if you think about it, the body was the payload in a weird, twisted way. So that's what they did. So obviously, this was the pretext they constructed. This was the persona, Major William Martin of the Royal Marines. That's who the body was. They covered him in a military uniform. They had love letters. I mean, they went deep with this guy. Theater ticket stubs, all that. It went all out. And so, they made his background. They went deep with this because they had to make it really convincing to these folks. So the document, was itself was a decoy, and just it was a fake letter between British generals and upon the invasion of Greece. That's what they were saying we're going to invade from. And so, it was just designed to leak, when the corpse was discovered, just not dumped upon them. And here you go. So then, obviously they used some techniques here, right? So with the pretexting, they forged the identity and backstory of Major Martin. And that's what we're going to focus on today here, the pretexting, building that story. All right. So the drop dead delivery. Yeah. I like to think that was the body, but yeah, the body with the documents on there. And then, the target profiling. Who's the target? The Germans in this case. All right. Because they were known to monitor, like everywhere else, France, wherever, they were, monitoring communications. And so, yeah, they made it, made it look all legit with the military documents, the ticket stubs, right? The theater ticket stubs, all that stuff. And then, so they were exploiting the belief that the Allies wouldn't attack a well-defended target like Sicily. So they just, in turn made them think, okay, they're going to attack through Greece here. Okay, this is it, So, and I guess the British, I didn't catch that part, but yeah, they were like, hey, we're trying to recover the body to make it more, more real, feasible to them. So we then, got our delivery, channel. All right. Yep. So that is the dead body. Okay. Carrying that physical intelligence. So the payload, obviously, those letters between the generals, all that good stuff. And I guess they let the body drift to shore in Spain. All right. Oh, yeah, we covered that one. And then, human targets. Obviously the Spanish officials, because they would be the one to probably grab the body. And then obviously, through that, it'd go to the Germans. And then, that information they found off the dead body, all that would go up to higher command, to Hitler and all that. So, in the end, they bought it. Yep. German divisions were redeployed to Greece and the Balkans. And then, we were able to, take Sicily pretty easily, with less resistance than what we got, like in Normandy, those other areas. And then, thousands of lives were saved, potentially over all that. So, but what makes it so perfect, right? The believability, right? Every little bit they planned, from the body to the uniform to the letters, the tickets, everything, love letters, whatever it is, they put on his body. Yeah. All right. And so then, they exploited, enemy assumptions, right? And biases. So, in the end, they moved those folks. They just thought, oh, yeah, we'll just go ahead and do that. And asymmetric deception, low cost, low yield, best put, okay? That dead body alone convinced the whole, axis, all right, to do that. And so, no direct contact, not like, we were doing it in person, as a spy or something, trying to get information out of people. So, and then, there's a little more information there. But this here is a perfect example of, great pretext and everything used in history and all. This is an chapter 1, your activity. I think I feel like I took the whole 5 minutes to explain that. Does anybody have any questions? Anything they'd like to share to the audience? Anybody? I don't have YouTube up, so if one of the folks, Corey, anybody?
I don't know about questions, but I just wanted to recap what happened here. The British got themselves a dead body.
Yes, sir.
Put him in a military uniform.
Yes, sir.
Got a bunch of theater tickets, plans, all kinds of random stuff. Shoved them in this guy's pocket.
I love the theater tickets alone, because that's really, because they used to do that back then, because it would be like a special memento or whatever, usually like with a girl or something, why? So. Okay. So they found this body, put him in a uniform, threw some theater tickets and other interesting things in his pocket to make the Germans think that the Allies were planning on going after Greece. Correct,
yeah.
Sir.
Okay. So then they redeployed to Greece. Sicily was less fortified, and we went after them.
Yes, sir.
It's a good story.
Pretty neat, huh? So, that there is it's one of my favorite stories, obviously besides the ninja and shinobi there in feudal Japan, but that's the best. So, okay, I guess no one has any questions. Yeah, we can move on. I hope that was a good first little exercise. But once you get the VM, it's all in there. We have all the activities listed out, all that good stuff, to include the slides. So, But yeah, that is activity 1. So let's go on. I will stop sharing this. Share my screen. Should be 2. Wrong one. See, I'll finally like figure this out tonight, like towards the end. Go figure. So we did that. Put that away. All right. So now let's move on to chapter 2. All right. This is the foundations of pretexting. All right. So we're going to start getting into a little bit. How do we do this? What is this all about? Pretexting. All right. Give you a little history, what it's all, a little general bit. So, all right. So I'm going to start here, like with the foundations. 2 of the biggest important things here. Okay. This is how you're going to be successful. Deep research and intelligence gathering. You got to understand how these work, and we'll get into it a little bit. I'm not going to get into a huge lesson about OSINT or anything like that. There's many courses, many great things out there, cover that. All right. But deep research and intelligence gathering. All right. This builds the foundation of credibility. All right. It all hinges on this. If that target perceives, all right, that the pretext is authentic, they're going to engage with it. All right. It's whether, whatever you're trying to get them to do, click on that link, share some sensitive info, allowing that, physical bypass or whatever it is, or allow you to get closer to that, that card reader so you can, read your EPSI key or ESP key or whatever. You got to do it. All right. But again, this is the foundation. Okay. All right. This minimizes those red flags, right? So it'll help you avoid those pitfalls. We'll go over a couple, here towards the end. And that's just going to give those signals to those folks like, yeah, this isn't right. Like, get out of here. For example, and what I mean by this is like using things like correct industry jargon, knowing those key internal company processes, right? What goes on in the company, the target style communication, right? This can all help prevent that, suspicion from occurring. And then a tailored approach, all right? I want to tell you now is the most effective, all right? No pretext are one and the same, all right? So, hey, I'm going to use these pretexts I did for my last engagement or whatever. No, like it just doesn't work that way, all right? They have to be tailored to that specific individual or organization because everyone is different. Every organization, every person, all right? So, yeah, and what I mean by this, I'm talking about things like culture, any typical behaviors, stuff like that. That's what I'm getting at here. Now, we do this through 2 ways, all right? OSINT, open source intelligence, all right? This is, the collection of publicly available information to produce, now hone on this word, to produce actionable intelligence, all right? We do this through, going on websites, social media, forums, public records, the deep web, right? Get those government articles, all that good stuff. All right. Now, I want to point this out because any information other than that, all right, it's just open source information, right? It's like raw, unprocessed data, right? You just found it on there, okay? It hasn't been analyzed. So open source information becomes OSINT once it's organized, analyzed, and given context. So think about as open source information as ingredients to a meal, and OSINT as the final meal, right? What you prepared. All right. Analysis is what transforms one into another. I just want to, make that clear. Because I know there has been past little confusion and all that, seen with folks. But now we have human intelligence. All right. So we're using that. That's face-to-face, or we're not face-to-face, but we could be interacting with a human, all right, directly. Whether it be over the phone, email, So, we can do this in many ways. We can do social engineering calls, right? Where we call up to get information, whatever it may be, all right? It could be face-to-face if you're up to it, all right? And again, you can extract a lot of good information. The key is just, build that rapport with them. And there's ways to do that quickly. But yeah, it's the rapport and trust that's going to, get you through there. And then another way, networking events and conferences. You can go to these, meet folks indirectly. That's another little crafty way. All right. You engage with the key personnel there in these settings and all that. All right. And sometimes you can get information that's not publicly available yet. So think about that. Insider interviews, right? You could just say, hey, I want to find out more about this target. Oh, they got a job. I could, you sit in on a job interview here and learn more and everything, And that's been used, and some people do get employed, and there are horror stories out there. So, but with that, just remember, some ethical considerations. Obviously, you want to make sure, make sure you're, because a lot of these folks, they're not going to know, like if they're giving you, what you're up to, right? So, especially if this is for engagement and all. So, just make sure it's ethical, right? Again, I kind of mentioned this before. We're not going to be using threats, fear, anything like that. So just kind of remember that. Again, no cohesive techniques, all right? Again, we're not going to manipulate anything like that, okay? So just keep that in mind with those two things. You'll be all right. All right. So we want to build, believable personas, all right, with all this, all right? So the objective of this persona, though, is, all right, we want to gain our access, right? But we want to define that beforehand, right? We want to clearly define what we want to achieve, all right? So whether it's gaining access to that building, extracting information from Sally over in accounting, whatever it is, okay? We got to make it believable, and act accordingly. So some key persona, components here is like a backstory, right? You want to use a, fictional backstory to create that persona, right? Including, personal, professional details that just make it look legit, plausible, and like consistent with the target expectations. All right. For instance, John Myers, he's a regional compliance officer who's been with the company 5 years. He works on these projects, DevOps, whatever it is. And yeah, he, just stuff like that. Okay. We want to make sure it's believable. Credentials, right? So I mentioned this guy here. Okay. He works DevOps or whatever. You're going to want to make sure maybe he has some qualifications, his job title sounds right. Now, I've done that before where, yeah, I had a target. I found the actual job they had there, that I was pretexting as. So, I could go in and not bat an eye. So, again, those misaligned credentials, though, that's often a red flag. You're going to have people, especially us in IT, cyber, infosec, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, sometimes we can tell, like, something ain't right here, the way they're talking. So, yeah, you just want to make sure you watch for that. Tone and communication, all right? So this is how we present ourselves, or how we're going to present that persona as we speak or write, all right? So, having that, formality, the jargon, all that packed, ready to go, okay? So they got to both reflect the role and the context of the interaction, right? The story to why we're doing this, okay? So this is where you establish the why now of the pretext. Why are we doing this now, And you can use all sorts of things. We'll, briefly go over that. It was like the 6 principles of influence. You can use those things like that. Good example would be, hey, that junior DevOps guy, whatever, hey, in a Slack, they can message to somebody, hey, need you to roll, your creds, like in a Slack chat. Can you roll my creds to meet the MFA compliance before close the business today or something like that? Can you just do it real set, quick for me, for prod access or whatever it is you're trying to get, so something simple like that. So then, yeah, when we're doing these stories too, yeah, we want to make sure, okay, and I kind of mentioned this, we want to make sure simple but effective, all right? Some cases you may have to go deep, sometimes you don't, okay? And you got to know that balance, that line. But you want to make sure the scenario is straightforward and easy enough to understand quickly, all right? You don't want to make this complicated, and that's just going to create, that moment for them to think even, like, oh, what are you asking? Wait, who are you? What? Yeah, you don't want that. Okay. So yeah, simple enough to understand, quick and easy. All right. And then from there, I mentioned this a second ago, introduce those emotional hooks, whether it be urgency, importance, that personal connection, something. Okay. You want to use something there. It's just going to make it much better and easier. Okay. So, yeah, urgency, like I said, kind of what I mentioned before with the MFA reset. All right. Oh, yeah. Oh, my bad. I just went into that with this slide here. So, yeah, as you can see here, I don't want to beat you guys over the head and all, but again, what I just mentioned there. And as I like to say, that the acronym KISS, keep it simple, silly. It's, like I said, going to keep you out of hot water and getting busted and all that good stuff. All right. So now we are rolling up to activity 2. Analyzing a pretext, okay? So we're going to go ahead and have a simple sample or sample or whatever you want to call it. A sample one here I'll show on the screen here by the Lapsus group or they call them Scattered Spider. I've actually done pretext everything in the past with this group for different engagements and all. So they're pretty much a cyber criminal gang. They pretty much pulled off the big heist at MGM. But this is some of their earlier work with Xfinity and whatnot. So let's go ahead. I will pull up my VM again and share what we have.
Jeff, while you're doing that, we had a question come in.
Sure. What's up?
So Crash Override here says, when going deep, is it just more thorough persona, or is it really about setting up stock accounts like LinkedIn to really sell it if needed? So basically,
kind of both. I mean, you want to. Yeah, I'd say it's more the first that you mentioned. You want to make sure you're consistent, and that's where then the LinkedIn and stuff will come in to help. Build that consistency. That sound right?
Yeah,
that makes sense. So. Yeah,
cool. And then one other one from friend of the village, Ken Nevers. He asked us a little bit ago, but he was wondering if you knew if they, from Operation Mincemeat, if they ever gave the John Doe a medal.
Oh, I don't know. I think so. I want to do it during a break, but I think I did hear something about that. That's a good question. Yeah, I like that. They should. He should, So.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. All right, let me show my screen here. All right, shoot. All right, PowerPoint, VM. All right. Let's see here. Everyone see my screen. Awesome. All right, so yeah, on your VM and everything, if you go down to Chapter 2 activity, all right, we're going to go ahead and analyze a little, mini pretext here, okay? So yeah, this happened to Xfinity, our lovely cable provider. I don't know, you all do. I have them. They're all right. If you know any better here in the Colorado Springs area, let me know. But essentially, yeah, this criminal group, Lapsus or Scattered Spider, as they're more known as now. Yeah, they went ahead and they called customer service and everything. And yeah, let's go take a look at this. So yeah, here's the one. Essentially, this isn't the exact pretext I want to, usually like whoever it is, the folks, Mandia, whoever have exactly, sometimes they do, their intel, but this is a general rundown of what happened, So yeah, the persona they used was Jason Monroe. I mean, it's just a name, but yeah, their job was a tier 2, network support engineer, and yeah, they worked for Comcast themselves, They went ahead and spoofed the number. There are ways to do this, SIM swapping, whatever it is. But it's kind of hard now. This was 2022. There are some protocols out there that shaken, not stirred, that make it tough to like spoof numbers now. I personally like to just use a burner phone and match the area code at least as best as I can. Unless you get into their system and all that and run amok. But generally that's what I do. But yeah, so they went ahead, made some vishing calls, as I like to say. Okay, and I'll actually just leave that up. So yeah, here's the scripted, pretext call. Okay, and this is very, very simple. I know in my pretext or my, I I get a little more in depth. I mean, because sometimes once in a while, my leadership or the client, on the other side of the house, they might just want to see it. And it's not like they're more just genuinely curious, like what goes into this. So, but yeah, I have a lot more information typically in mind. I have the script, information about the persona. It's a little more than this, typically, just so because it's my plan of action, and that's the way you got to like look at this. This is your plan of action, your map, so you want to make sure it's for you. So you want to make sure, you're good to go. All right, enough of me rambling. But so yeah, starts off with, hey, this is Jason from Comcast Business Tier 2 Support. Yeah, we got an active ticket, right? They're using that IT, route. And those usually make great pretext, obviously, for obvious reasons. But yeah, they got an active ticket regarding some anomalies, drop packets from the Chicago office, that subnet there. So they're just saying, hey, we're calling in to call you folks directly. That's what they're trying to do. So they're talking to the employee, the target employee they're going after. And so they're getting more information. They're like, yeah, we've isolated the issue to a user who's unable to, re-authenticate due to Okta, due to expired MFA session. Aha. So good old MFA reset, I think we may be looking at here, Yeah, I've done stuff like this too, very interesting. But yeah, we're seeing multiple Samuel, assertion failures because they're obviously trying to authenticate in. That's what it uses to avoid trigger, session logouts. So we need their MFA session reset or reissued for our re-authenticating testing. Okay, interesting. So yeah, like I said, they're going to the MFA reset. That's what pretty much happened with MGM as well. That was one of the methods they used here doing this. So yes, hey, can you assess by clearing the push session, right? Maybe a little fatigue, right? MFA fatigue, or triggering a new MFA enrollment link, right? To produce something. I have their ID and email. Ooh, okay. We just need to validate connectivity before the session window closes. So, they give the, the information and everything. Changed it. And so, yeah, obviously this needs to close within the next 30 minutes per SLA, right? Providing that urgency. Like, oh, we got to do this, right? Got to move quick. So, yeah, that's what they generally did here. And so, yeah, looking at everything here. Yeah, what were some of the levers they used here, right? So authority, right, with their position, or that tier 2 person. I don't know how high up the chain that is. Might be, the urgency, right? Mentioned that. The SLA deadlines and everything. So then the session timeouts. Technical jargon, right? SAML, VPN, the Okta, and the subnet routing. So, right, the familiarity, excuse me, mentions real internal staff, right, from doing their recon, their OSINT, maybe a little human intelligence, making some calls. All right. And then they knew that ticket lingo down. They used fake tickets, IDs, they just knew it, so they could pass off some, baloney, whatever it is. So, yeah, that is an example of a fake one, or, one that has been used in the past in the wild. So are there any questions here, or? We went through that one pretty quick, but we're good on time so far. I think we're doing pretty good because these next activities, we're going to actually be drafting a persona, all that good stuff, where you folks will take the time and do it. All right. Seems like no questions. We can move on. Actually, anyone want a break? Everyone good? Like need water, anything like that? No, I don't. Got my little drink here.
So Zero Crash wants to know
Sure.
about the first time you did this. How did it go for you?
So the MFA actually went pretty good. But it wasn't, how can I say it? It wasn't on the help desk themselves, it was a procedure thing, and that's the thing, they give you everything they are supposed to, because they got to follow checklists, all this stuff. But I was able to, I had the piece of information they were looking for, and it was just like no stopping. Like I was able to use an escape clause. Yeah, and just back out of it. So they actually didn't do the reset, because we used that one too, trusted personas. We actually reached out to a couple employees, and they were like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll keep it quiet. They thought it was really cool, and we were able to do all that, and they got no actual reset. But so yeah.
Very cool.
Okay. I guess we'll get into the next section here. Yeah. All right. So let me stop presenting here. We'll go back to these wonderful slides. Share screen. All right. Screen one. So yeah, we had fun there. We analyzed that pretext. And so now we are going to get into something you folks may find a little interesting here. OSINT tools and techniques. So yeah, I wanted to go over this briefly. Again, this is probably like the shortest part of all this. So again, there's tons of training out there that, yeah, can get you ready, all set. You know what I mean? But I'm not here to tell you that, all right? And here's my reasoning why. You'll see here. So again, as I mentioned previously before, OSINT, it's gathering information from publicly available data. Beware of open source information versus OSINT, all right? But again, this is like very important because this is what's going to drive our, our actual pretext, right? So with that, all right, we have some like tools to assist, and watch this, okay? Prepare to have your minds blown. Pretty basic stuff, right? Okay. So yeah, some of the tools, I like to use are mind maps, right? We can print out our target. You can do the Charlie Day or, It's Always Sunny thing, with the strings of yarn, all that good stuff. Or you can use this computer, software program. Many good ones out there, draw.io, Obsidian, which we have here in our VM. There's just so many you can do to do all this, okay? I just mentioned this one because I do actually like this one. What's my name? It just uses, you can take a username, run it through, and it'll try to find other areas where, this username's been used. All right. So, case in point, I do trace labs, it's pretty funny. And I'll use this sometimes. But one funny story was we got I know a local journalist here. And this individual sent her messenger some like really nasty, violent, disgusting things here. So, but all she had was that username. And no lie, we were able to determine 1 hour before this trace lab started, we found the username information, wrote up a little report off that one username, using that tool. So, that's why I wanted to give it a little love, what's my name there. So then, yeah, we have our search engine dorks, okay, Google searching, these are advanced search operator techniques. There's different ways. In the VM, I do have a little sheet, with actual ones. I'll show that here in a second too, once we get into the next activity. But yeah, so you can use those search engine dorks. And then you have your basic tools, right? Like Whois, lookup, dig, all that. Basic tools, all right? Now you're probably like, well, Jeff, why are you mentioning this? Why are you harping on this? And the reason is right here. I'll tell you why. We'll go over this here. Tools versus techniques. All right, we got a bunch of great tools out there. Great tools, no lie. I mean, Multigo, Recon NG, the Harvester. I like that one. Harvester, really cool. Can automate, do all this great stuff, collect, visualize, you name it, okay? But again, this is on the user though, and their ability to intercept all that information. Remember, open source information, as I mentioned before, But you got to be able to take that information and you got to understand essentially under the hood how it's working, because if it breaks down, tool or that gets deprecated, right? We have tools that come and go like you wouldn't believe. So you got to kind of know what's working under the hood. All right. Now you have my favorite, manual techniques. All right. Manual OSINT techniques such as, just using those search operators, right? I talked about just knowing how to use those, how to research, how to, where to look. Because there's different ways if you're looking at an organization. You got to want to know, okay, I'm going to want to look at, all their business records, all that, their IRS filings, you name it, Versus an individual, hey, maybe I'm just going towards social media, stuff like that. So, yeah. And then in addition, and I'll tell you from a personal story, I was working on a target, okay? And I remember it was like some LinkedIn tool. I forget what it was. It's just one of the ones that'll scrape. Oh, it's like a LinkedIn tool that'll scrape all, you put in the company or whatever it is, and it'll scrape it LinkedIn for you and, get all the information. So I ran it. Cool. It, got me some, like all the top leadership and all that. I just wasn't feeling it. I'm not buying this. I'm like, there's more that work for this. It's a Fortune 500 company here, right? So just did a little research. I went into like my old, I had an old G Pen book, and grabbed that, and I was looking up a part, and I was like, found this operator. I was like, actually, let me try this, because I got into LinkedIn searches and all, specifically. I tried that search operator manually, and bow, tons and tons of names of employees, stuff. I was like, oh, this is money. And from there, I was able to find badge information, you name it, off of that. So that is my personal story, with watching it with, automated tools or tools in general versus manual techniques. I'm trying to think, this last engagement I did. Yeah, everything was manual, whether it be just Google Maps, everything. I don't recall using any automated tool, anything for all my OSINT and everything. So, I mean, they're there. I'm not saying don't use them, but just beware. I'll get off my soapbox right now. Any questions on that, specifically? It's got to be one that's going to try and bash me. What are you talking about? Nobody? All right, cool.
Yeah, it looks like you're getting a bunch of agreement from the chat. Yeah.
All right, good. All right, cool. I'm not too crazy. Awesome. So, all right. So when we're doing our OSINT and all that, right? Our techniques, right? We want to use effective techniques. So, yeah, we want to, obviously go on our social media. I feel that is the juiciest, some of the especially LinkedIn. It helped me in my last, engagement here, especially with badges. So, it's all on there. LinkedIn, I mean, Scattered Spider with MGM, that's one source they said, yeah, they actively hit up, was like LinkedIn and everything. Then you have the others, Twitter, Facebook, stuff like that, Blue Sky, all your stuff. Oh, another good one, Reddit. That's another good one as well, because you will get, I had a target, and I figured out they were using a sort of point of sale system, and yeah, I was like, oh, I got to learn more about this thing. And yeah, I went on Reddit, and they had forums literally of that particular point of sale system, everything. And I learned so much, about that point of sale system. So when I called them up, yeah, I could talk as I was because my pretext was, yeah, one of those maintainers of those exact point of sale systems and all. So yeah, really good. Yeah, company websites and press releases. Yeah, you can learn everything from the leadership all the way down. Blogs, you can learn some of their culture, leadership, changes, anything, developments, because sometimes they have a news section, all that. Okay, so those help big time, especially that culture piece, because one target, yeah, I learned all about they have an education system. It was just crazy, but I was able to talk on when I called about when I was inquiring about it, just about all the values they had, all that. So yeah, just be aware of that. Job postings, yeah, you can learn their technology stack, all that, through job postings, because yeah, they're advertising, hey, what we need such and such position for, so it's all right there, which is really good. And then yeah, public records and databases. You can see, all sorts of stuff, especially with your organizations, the corporate filings, as I mentioned, with IRS, patents, legal documents. I don't know how many times I've just got, oh, it was another good one too. Oh yeah. What, these records and databases, especially where they're storing their stuff. I found, yeah, all sorts of stuff on, rental agreements. I able to figure out, if they had guards, stuff like that through that, just databases the companies put out there. Just really wild stuff. So yeah, these are the things, yeah, you should, be cognizant of, your techniques, what you should be leveraging, looking through these sites and everything. You'd be surprised, what you find. Cool. Any questions there? None? All right. So,
Yeah,
cool,
pretty
all right.
clean sailing so far.
Good. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, Crash Override pointed out, I feel like one leads to the other. Grab the base level stuff with automation, then use that to dive deeper with more targeted manual techniques.
100%. Yep. So, yeah, you hit the nail on there, Crash, for sure. So, yeah, one hand washes the other with all this. So, all right. So now we are over at activity number 3. All right. So yeah, this is more of like a demo. I'm going to pull up my VM here, just show you like some of the stuff I like to use. You're going to see something really interesting. The VM's very basic, but you'll understand why, because again, I'm a more manual person, but let me show you now. Get that all set up. So yeah, what we're going to do is, using a downloaded VM if you did, we'll just take a look around at some of the stuff on there. Again, I'm not teach much on OSINT and everything. Tons of good stuff out there. Feel like that area is covered. All right, so stop screen here. Let's present. Share screen. All right, come on, you. All right, and we're see my screen. All right, beautiful. All right. So, activity 3. Yep, over here. Oh, so another nice thing. Whoop, that's my screen there. With this activity here, obviously we'll take a look here some more. But yeah, in your Obsidian vault and everything, just really simple. You got some. Put a couple little checklists in there. For you folks to use when doing this. And it just helps. Whether it be their individual target. These are the things you want to look for. Typically. With dealing an individual target. Now, if we're dealing like target OSINT on the organization, yeah, these are the things you're going to want to grab. Try to, figure out, locate. One I like to hone in on, HQ versus branch offices. This is something I typically see, like a lot of times, especially with the IT departments, like you'll have your company headquarters. And then their IT, wherever, is like located elsewhere at a data center or whatever. Not too far typically, but I've seen that with like a lot of companies. So, that's always something like good to know as well. Obviously phone numbers, voicemail styles, anything. If you can grab, what was it? Another thing I liked, their branding guides, if you can find those, because those have, what their emails look like, any documents, stuff like that. So you're going to do some phishing or whatever, that's really like, nice to have and everything. Yeah, Pretexting specific. So when, you narrow it down, you're like, all right, I'm going to go in as Chuck, Chuck from HR. Obviously you're going to want to figure out, HR jargon specifically within that company, acronyms. So yeah, you get that from like job posts, anything like that. Slack leaks, they're out there. There's all sorts of leaks out there nowadays. Signals, you name it. Search for previous incidents the company has had. This is a good one. And so this goes back to that target I was mentioning before with the point of sale systems. So as I was doing my OSINT and do everything. Sorry, I got a leg cramp just now. That's all right. So what happened was that previous was like maybe 6 months prior when I was doing this, they had come under a like DDoS attack and everything. Their systems were just getting teed up and everything. So yeah, using the pretext as that guy, I was talking about, that actually like works on those systems for the company, the point of sales. Yeah, I was able to use that, towards my advantage, that incident. So I was like, hey, such and such, I'm calling. Yeah, remember that 6 months ago? Remember we had that DDoS attack and everything with the system? Yeah. And it worked like a champ. People bought it and were giving me all sorts of information. So yeah, previous incidents, that helps big time. Relevant holidays, all that, because you don't want to be making calls or whatever it is and everyone's out, right? You're not going to get your call back as soon as you like. Obviously, style templates. I mentioned that before, kind of with organizational branding guides, all that good stuff. Yeah, org chart, and then Yeah, pressure points, especially like with earnings and everything. We see it with healthcare, insurance, whatever. Earning calls create stress, right? We're going to have jobs. Are we getting bonuses? A lot rides on that. So think about it that way. Then human tactics checklist, all right? So when we're doing our social engineering thing, yeah. Are we, are these people are conditioned to like trust people naturally, right? Because as humans, we tend to do, some more than others. And so there are some professions where, yeah, customer service, stuff like that, where you're more inclined to. Ooh, excuse me. Match the tone to the org culture. Again, startup casual, right? Where they're wearing like, I don't know, like t-shirt jeans, on Friday versus, working for the government where it's more khakis, polo, business casual at times. And then, again, and then we'll get kind of towards the end of this workshop, but we'll just, some tips and tricks. But we want to make sure, our pretext, persona, whatever it is, matches the data we're grabbing or what's out there and everything. So, and then, avoid red flags. I call them from weird area codes. Again, talked about that like with my burner phone I have on hand. I'll throw in a Mint Mobile, program it, and you can pick your own, zip code and everything. So that's what I'll tend to do, before all that. So yeah, there's that checklist and everything. So yeah, use it, hope it's helpful and everything. So yeah, as I was mentioning before, we have some more stuff on here. Search engine operator, cheat sheet. Yep, mentioned that before. Got some great basic operators, all that good stuff you can use. Site domain specific information. I just threw it all in there, all that good stuff. Oh, actually, yeah, while we're here, this is a good time. So, I'm going to say this now. Okay. Actually, no, yeah, we will now because you kind of see it there. It's too late. Cat's out of the bag. But a friend of mine, John Costa, okay, he's on my, we're on an OSINT team together, weaponized ADHD. I think he's watching tonight, not sure. But yeah, he developed an awesome OSINT sock puppet GPT, but you can use this to develop pretext and all. Tonight, though, we're going to do everything manual, all right? It's just, because I'm not going to dog chat GPT. It does help, like I'm not saying don't use it. But yeah, what it is essentially is, helps create a persona. You can ask it to tell it, hey, get real deep with this. Or you can tell it. But yeah, it will add, fake address if you want, if you're creating a sock puppet account for OSINT research or just persona. But I've used this before and it's a great tool. And then again, just, word prompting, before you actually use it, it'll just tell you. But yeah, this is a great tool John put together and everything. And you can get it through ChatGPT and everything. So there's a link, everything to it. But yeah, I wanted to show that off. Shout out to John Costa. All right. In addition, if you want to look at that hack article, I put it in there. Also a link to it, stuff like that. Okay. So enough of that. We'll just click that. So let's see. Oh yeah. So on here, obviously if you work it up, open it up, I put a link to the Ultimate OSINT collection. To me, this has everything you need, tools, whatever. You can go from there. If you want to, this is where I go to, grab whatever it is, any tool, or you can grab all sorts of stuff, bookmarks to like load into your like toolbox here. So that's why, again, I'm not like, hey, I'm going to load a bunch of tools in there, because how you can take this VM and customize it yourself for your needs and everything. I will do future releases on this, some other conferences and stuff, and I'm going to add more to it, but again, the goal here is to keep it sleek enough, with what you actually need to do this. In addition, obviously you'll see here, some other stuff. Yeah, ChatGPT told you, use it. Then CyberChef, another great tool I love using, especially when it comes to rejects, your regular expressions, dealing with that. You're setting up JavaScript for fishlets, whatever, all that type of stuff. But yeah, great little tools, CyberChef and everything. It's just taking forever to load. Go figure. Oh, there we go. But again, yeah. I think many of us use this here. So yeah, that there is that. I think that was really the gist of it. Again, we it came with net tools and everything. But yeah, you have your if you want to use Dig and everything, google.com.
Hey, Jeff.
So yes, sir.
Yeah, we had someone talking about layer 8. Might
Oh yeah.
Plug.
Oh, if that's cool. Yeah. Oh, hey,
Yeah,
thanks. All right, cool. So yeah, folks, if you are in the Boston area, June 14th or 13th, that's when this is. I will be doing an actual 3-hour version of this for Layer 8 conference. Layer 8 conference is the only social engineering and OSINT conference out there that we focus solely on that. This year, yeah, they're kind of bringing it back because it was virtual a couple of years back. They took a year off and all that. But yeah, we got 3 great workshops, including mine. I'll be doing this. I'll be also including a actual capstone at the end for students. So we're actually going to be developing these and giving these pre-texts out. We're going to be judging them, all that good stuff, with some more added bennies and everything, to it. If you go, ticket price includes a conference ticket, to my workshop, and the rest goes to charity, Innocence Project. So yeah, if you can, I'll post some information if it's cool about Layer 8 and everything. But yeah, we're gonna have some really good talks and workshops and everything. It's gonna be really exciting, and it's Boston, it's my home stomping ground. So, but yeah, that's my pitch. Thank you. So, all right. So yeah, chapter 3, we did it. Let me look at the clock. Just want to make sure we're doing good. We are. Awesome. So let me stop sharing this. And let's get back to it. So and I know you're here. Yep. Yeah, we flexed those muscles. We did it. All right. We talked to OSINT. We went over the VM and everything. Have at it if you want. Yeah, all the directions, everything are on my GitHub, for it, how to load it and everything. All that good stuff. All right. So let's get back to it. As I mentioned, here we are. Chapter 4. All right. This here is the meat and potatoes, okay, of all of this. All right. So everyone's like, all right, I'm going to start listening now. No. But, yeah, persona and scenario development. All right. So we have some steps here when we're doing this, right? We're just not going to write things on a paper and call it good, right? Even though my ADHD brain wants to do that at times, all right? So, all right, what's this persona? All right, what is a persona? All right, this is just a fictional identity, kind of like pretext, okay? The purpose of it is like we're understanding the goal of this pretext, okay? Like it's what we're doing through this process, all right? And, again, it's that identity we're using to gain that trust, get them to do what we need, all right? And so there are some steps when we're doing this, okay? We don't want to, just rush in, like I said, and just write things down, all right? We first want to define the objective, all right? Then we want to research, gather that intelligence, right? One of the most important pieces that I mentioned previously. We then develop that backstory. We'll craft the communication style. We go about that, right? Remember that communication tone, all that. And then we're going to go ahead, take that, validate it, and refine it, right? Because we just don't write it once and call it good. We shouldn't be, at least. Because like when I'm doing these, oh yeah, I'll be sitting there with my buddy or partner. They're like, hey, read this. What do you think, man? Is this, hey, let's get out on call and practice this, what do you think? Let's work out the kinks. All right. So first up, define the objective. All right. So the purpose of this is like we are understanding the goal here of the pretext. Okay. This is what the persona's role should align with this. All right. Why we're here. Okay. Whether it be we're trying to gain access physically, resetting that MFA, as we mentioned in that previous pretext, extracting info, important information to juicy info. All right, so and then we have our target audience, okay? This is who we'll be interacting with. be a specific individual, could be a department, I don't know, like a dog pound. I don't know, but we got to understand it, how it works, what they are, their characteristics. Okay, this is crucial. This is a must, or else we're just going to straight up ban. All right. We then want to, next, research and gather that intelligence. Remember that deep, intelligence, the research and deep intelligence gathering. All right. We want to go ahead and collect that open source intelligence, the internal context, if we're using human, or the human intelligence, if we're using human. All right. But we want that internal context. Okay. That's going to support this persona development. All right. We want to identify the gaps and opportunities with this. All right. Where we can naturally fit ourselves into there. So we look right, so we don't get, blow our cover. Next, all right, we want to develop the backstory. All right, so, we'll get into, and this consists of like the personal history, all right? We want to define their background, education, their work history, maybe in some cases their personal interests, depending on how deep we're going. All right, I know like some, I've been on, we don't go that far. I just want to know your work information, really about it. But then sometimes if you really got to go deep, yeah, you may have to, But make sure you get you clarify that, because you don't want to, it can become a ethical area, pretty quick. Like how far is too far? If that makes sense. Okay. I always tell people I won't go too far unless I figure out you got a cool cat or dog. Then I get a little more interested. I want to see more, But biggest thing, yeah, it's got to be plausible, right? Consistent with what the target expects, all right? Again, that point of sales, system operator I was telling you about, okay, at the vendor the company uses. Perfect example. Professional credentials, right? We want to make sure those align, as I mentioned before. If you're working in IT and everything, they got to, line up with that exactly, right? The credentials got to line up with what you're meant to play. And now current context, okay? Why are we reaching out now, okay? This is to establish the persona's current situation, all right? Why are we reaching out? And this is where we may use those emotional hooks, as I mentioned. The urgency or routine behavior, whatever it is. Caldini 6, principles of influence. All right. Now, after that, we're going to go ahead and craft the communication style. All right. So first up, we have tone and language. We want to match the person's tone to their background and industry. All right. Are they formal, technical, friendly? That's what we're trying to establish here. All right. Behavioral traits. We want to determine, right, how this person will behave, decide how they act during these interactions. Confidently, passively, pushy, empathetic, stuff like that. We're going to get into that in 2 seconds, all right? About empathy and sympathy. So there is a difference. Again, we want to align these traits with expectations in the persona role. That's what we're aligning these with. The target expectations and persona role. Cool. Then after we're done here, this is an important one. Had a buddy, got good for not doing this recently. But we want to validate and refine the persona, all right? So, one of the first things we want to do is, cross-check for consistency, right? We will review all those entire persona elements and make sure, it is like internal consistency and realism, right? Believable. Then here's the big piece. We want to test the persona. Before deploying it, trying out anything like that, especially in a live operation, just consider testing it in like a least low risk environment, maybe at the hotel, as you're gearing up, you go through your, whoever it is, but you got to test it out, because if you don't, because there's a big difference doing it live versus, in theory. I'll tell you that now. All right. And this is important because I'll be honest, I got burned, for not doing deep enough. Guard caught me and I was just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, walking, friend. Yeah, it just didn't pan out. Luckily by then it all ended and everything, but yeah. You got a
Hey,
question?
Jeff.
Sorry.
Yeah. Do you practice in front of a mirror?
You could. I haven't personally, but that'd be a pretty good idea. I like old boy here, you know. You talking to me? You know, De Niro, you're a taxi driver. You talking to me? So you could, yes. I like to know, was that asked on purpose because of De Niro? You know?
Yeah.
Taxi
And then
driver.
we've got when you're doing an engagement, what helps you get into the mindset of your persona?
Very good question. How can I say this? Because obviously there's a lot of excitement, everything going on. Like your body's like hyped, you know, you're like, oh crap. So like before I go in, like on scene there or wherever it is there, you know, to the target's location, especially if I'm doing it in person, I got my hype music, you know, almost like before I'm getting ready for a talk or workshop. Seriously, like I'll put on one of my favorites is Clan to the Front, Jizza, Wu-Tang, you know. I'll sit there, just vibe, you know, like, hey, I got this. Have a little
yourself a montage.
Yeah, you know, like I'll sit there, vibe, just like, all right, let's do this, you know. There's some things I do beforehand, improv. Like I'm a big improv fan, you know. Still do. I do drop-ins, all that, just to, you know, get the rust, you know, off and everything. Improv is a great tool, you know, thing to do to help you get ready, especially for in person and everything.
Yeah, all right, that's cool. I never thought about that. Improv class is the ability to work those muscles to think outside.
Yeah. I know lawyers, everybody that do improv and stuff, you know, because like you think you're going to class, meet a bunch of actors and actresses. Well, no, all walks of life, you know. I've met people and why they do improv, and yeah, like one lady, she did it. It was like one of the most amazing things ever. Like she barely could talk to anybody, like real introvert, you know. And like, so yeah, I had 101 with her, and like she was like getting better, and we did like intermediate, advanced together, everything, and like she just blossomed.
Oh, and, that's
like,
awesome.
She is funny, and so she now has her own show at the Improv Theater every month and all with a partner.
Oh, just took off, man. She bloomed. Wow.
Oh yeah, she bloomed. So I'm telling you guys, improv, man, it does wonders and everything. So. And in your 101 classes too, real quick, you're not on a stage, right? You are, but you're all in a group playing games and stuff like that. It isn't until like an intermediate advanced where you're on a stage, you're getting direction from your coach and working with
partners. Sort of ease you into it, let you get a feel for things. Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to let people know that, you know, because it seems overwhelming, you know.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
And do you have some other examples of some low risk environments where you could test out your persona?
So, you know, for instance, like, especially when we're doing vision calls or whatever, I've called my improv coach one time and sat with her, like, here, just work with me. I didn't give her specifics, who my target is and all that. No. You know, but hey, this is what's going on. I need you to act out this way. Okay. And I'd have her give me some pushback, you know, test those little things because it's going to happen. You're going to get pushback and all. And I'll get into that too, you know, how we deal with that and everything here in a bit. Excellent. So, yeah. Hope that answers that. So. Any other questions? All right, I guess not. All right, cool. So yeah, we're there. Let me get my notes back up. And validate. Just want to make sure. All right, we are good. All right. So are we on time? Oh, we're doing great. Okay, so there is some importance here. Okay, when we are drafting these or making these pretexts and everything. I've kind of, you know, mentioned this already, some of it in the beginning, especially when it comes to ethics and everything. But yeah, we kind of want to get in the target's mindset here, all right? This helps us, you know, profile and understand the fears, even though we're not going to use it, the motivations and cognitive biases within that, like, persona, especially if we're trying to figure out what field they work in and everything. And then, yeah, we'll, you know, it enables alignment, you know, on how they're going to respond, or not just how the target feels, or just how they feel, not how they just think. Because we want to hit them in the feels, right? You know, typically in a good way. Just not how they think day in, day out. All right. And then obviously we're going to tailor that approach again. Okay. I know I mentioned it here in the beginning, you know, but yeah, we have to tailor that approach because we all respond differently, act differently, you name it. So like, keep that in mind. So then sometimes, you know, we want to try to predict these reactions. All right. Because, you know, we're ethic folks. We just don't want to go get everyone all upset and everything, but we can do that through, scenario planning. Okay. We anticipate how the target might react in that specific situation. All right. And this is where I'm going to get into empathy and sympathy here in a second, All right. But this prepares us to overcome objections or hesitations before they arise in the situation. All right. Then we have our influence tactics. All right. Psychological profiling, which identifies manipulation techniques, again, I hate using that word manipulation. Because I believe social engineering, everything is just a form of communication at the end of the day. I mean, manipulation is a technique, but it shouldn't be the sole thing when it comes to social engineering. Just a ism of mine. But yeah, we want those psychological profiles. And what I mean by that are reciprocity, social proof, Cialdini's 6, principles. That's what I'm getting at here. Okay. And then at the end of the day, it allows the attacker to maximize compliance from that individual with just a little bit of, resistance, from them. That's what we're trying to do, right? We don't want to make waves. All right. So this gets over to, the importance of understanding empathy versus sympathy, right? So empathy, right? It's the ability to understand and share another person's feelings after they were your own, all right? And then this, creates an emotional connection and deeper rapport when dealing with these folks. That's the whole, point behind it.
Do you have a
Now,
moment?
yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. So we did have a question. Net Sculptor asked, do you have a type of target that you prefer? Do you have a target preference?
Not really, just whatever is given to me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, hey, that's all right. Call desk or help desk. All right, you got to give him what you're given.
And Kara wants to know, how do you do the psychological profiling of targets?
So what I typically do, I go with the bread and butter, Cialdini's, 6, principles there. And I'll put a link in, or if we can even, but if you can read the book Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini, I say Cialdini, it's Cialdini, and so you can get that anywhere. And that book will take you far. But yeah, it covers the 6 principles that create influence, how you can influence folks and everybody. And there's other trying to think of another off the top of my head. What's the other one too? Oh, the retired FBI agent. It's so really good. Never Split the Difference. Yeah, that's another good book as well. He really got me thinking about my voice when I talk to people, because I have that radio voice. So how to actually use that and everything to create a calming situation for folks, stuff like that. So yeah.
If you could get me the name and writing of that.
Yeah, I'll get you all that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we get that.
Or we can put it in at the end or something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, too easy.
Excellent.
All right. Anything else?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Cool. So now we have sympathy. All right. This is recognizing someone's hardship and sharing care and concern, right? You're not necessarily feeling that feeling yourself within yourself, but you understand what they're going through, stuff like that. All right. You could say more detached and observational in that sense. All right. So the key difference though, okay, why? We need to, all right. Empathy connects emotionally. Sympathy acknowledges it, but from a distance. We see it, we understand, but we're not feeling it ourselves, in a way. Okay. And why? Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Okay. We got to understand this because we're able to exploit empathy to build that trust rapidly, quick, because that's what we want to be in, out, doing this without raising any concern. And, that's that. We don't want them thinking twice. And then, we bypass those emotional defenses, people have, okay, by mirroring those feelings and appearing helpful, I mean, if you can help someone else in the meantime, hey, great, and get your objective done. Cool. I call that a good day. But, and then obviously you can, it helps you tailor those pretexts to bigger, trigger that emotional, compliance instead of the usual logical, evaluation, we'll do from time or typically. So there you go. All right. Here we go. We come to the meat and potatoes part here, but we're actually building that pretext. I don't know. I can give some time for it if folks actually want to, or if you want me to, because I know not everyone got to download a VM tonight. So it's really, your guys' folks' call. I'll share you what I have here on the VM because I got some nice templates, everything for you folks. So if you want to come back and do it later, at least, we got that. Not sure how everyone wants to roll with that. And this is 2 hours, so, But we're getting close to the end. Not sure if you folks can see the chat, what folks saying.
I'm sorry. I was reading chat. I wasn't sure what you were.
I wasn't sure if people wanted to sit and actually do this. Because I know not everyone's got the VM, but, they can get it and do it later. I'll show you what I have in the VM for the activity. I got nice pretext, templates, everything ready, for folks. And they can come back and do it later. I know. And we almost got like 20 minutes, so.
Okay, folks, at home playing along. What do you want to guys?
I'll gladly give 10 minutes or so, and I'll show off.
They're discussing the books.
All right, cool. Good, got some buzz, and those books are helpful, especially influence. Yeah. Chris Voss. Yes, thank you, Troy. You rock. Never split the difference. Yep. Yeah, retired FBI guy, and he owns his own company now, Black Swan. Really cool where he does that. And he explains in that book, Black Swan, what that all means, Pretty much a wild card. So, cool. All right, so we'll do that. I'll just show you what's on the VM and everything. And
yep, sounds like his dealership.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Sweet. Let me just switch screens again. All right. All right, so let's log into our screens here. Ooh, excuse me. All right, so activity 4. We're gonna build those pretexts out. All right. Again, this is where the rubber meets the road here. Okay, we're gonna put everything together. So yeah, using your own. I mean, if you have your own, cool. Or the given Obsidian templates, which you'll see here in a second. You're gonna create a persona and scenario. So, here you can see, here's a template, got everything, name, what's their job, what's the organization. So you got a little backstory here. You got your credentials. Okay, and look at it. We got examples in here. It's Sec Plus, great sir. I mean, it was one of my first, that Net Plus. But yeah, get all the information, your company badge ID. I mean, again, this is stuff you can just, depending on it, you just got to say it. They're not going to confirm. It's a risk, but, if they're not going to check, cool, go for it. Yeah, tone and communication. Again, everything we went over in those little pieces there. Right? How does this person speak? Right? You want to figure that out. Are they more casual, formal? Are they a non-native speaker? That's another thing too, And then again, you just write that all down with the example. Again, this could be as long as as long as you need it. All that. So then that's the persona template. Then we got our scenario. Okay, what's the scenario here? All right, what's the goal? What are we trying to do here? As I mentioned, we're trying to, convince that help desk to reset that MFA. Notice how I love that the MFA resets. Big, it's a big thing nowadays, especially with MFA. You want to make sure it's implemented correctly, because then you can end up like United Health Care and help the creek without a paddle. So then, we got those emotional hooks. Remember, Cialdini's 6 there. This is 5 out of the 6. Should be social proof, in there as well. But yeah, authority, urgency, scarcity, trust, familiarity, right? We always trust those we have something familiar with, right? Especially all my veteran folks out there. Supporting evidence, all right? Well, what assets will help you, make this believable? Think back of Operation Mincemeat with that dead soldier there, right? The things they planted on there to make it more believable. The letters, the ticket stubs, you name it, all right? But in this case, if you're calling like a help desk or whatever it is, hey, you want to make up, those things like in this example here. Another thing I like to do, believe it or not, especially with vishing calls and everything, play background noise. I'll put it in an office, whatever. Just make sure you listen to it carefully, because I made the mistake once of, it was an office and everything, but there were typewriters going. Noises. They bought it, but still, I realized that after. I was like, oh shoot, should have thought about that one more. But I've done airport noises. I remember MFA reset. I acted like, oh man, I need to do this reset. I'm stuck at an airport here. And it's literally like airport noise I'm playing in the background. Sounds like flights are being called and everything. So I recommend that. And that's really it. That's what we'd be looking for with that, the persona and scenario. Cool. Any questions with that?
You're saying typewriters aren't modern?
I mean, maybe work at a hipster place. They're out there. Imagine that, though. Yeah, I work for this agency, this ad agency. Jeez. I'm gonna put that into our sprint planning. All right, cool. All right, so that's that. So you go ahead, build those, and you can use those too for whenever too. If you're a professional soldier engineer, by all means, how about it? All right, so we got that. We did chapter 4. All right, so let's go back to our slides. Bingo. Sweet. All right. So we did that chapter. Now we are on chapter 5. This is where we put that pretext into effect. All right. So role play and adaptability. Let me get my notes up here. All right. Here we go. So, adaptability. What's the big deal, right? It's a big deal, all right. It's crucial. So, live interactions are unpredictable. Who are they? Again, last week, it just was, I got good, with that guard and everything. It's unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to ask, do what. It's just a nervous situation, all right? But this, if you're able to, I guess you could say, control it, learn to control it, adapt. It just ensures, though, at the end of the day, that you are using that the right tone, strategy in real time. All right, that's how you can adapt. It's just keep on doing this, practicing, whatever it is. All right, not to the point where it's verbatim, and I'll get into that. All right, but not word from word, but because then you're going to come off really weird then. All right. So, and again, it happens. I've had people call my bluff, it just happens. So, but again, it just keeps us believable and all that good stuff. So common challenges. All right. What am I getting at here? So, skepticism, right? The target might say, hey, I never heard of you before. Who do you report to? Why are you asking this? And this is where, again, that research and all, you casually drop that LinkedIn name from, Recon or whatever it is. And I've actually done it where I did my research properly, like I was supposed to. And I threw out a name, I was doing some fishing and oh, okay. And proceeded to give me what I needed, So that's how you can, help combat that. Unexpected questions or requests. It does happen. So, the target, you might be on the phone. I've had this, or, hey, can you send this in writing? I've had them ask that. I've had, hey, even though I tried the little area code trick and all, I had one person this ain't your work phone. Call me from your work phone and I'll help you out then. So, but things like that, you can have a fallback ready. Okay. In case that happens, you've got to think of those plans A, B, or C, or try to, for a credible reason why, you can't do that per se. I just kind of use an escape clause, at that point with that one guy, because again, his tone, his communication, I could tell he was not going to budge. So I knew, okay, just hang up, call it good. So I used an escape clause, oh yeah, man. Hey, I'll get back with you and do that. Cool. And they didn't report me. So which is bonus. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Yeah, you want to maintain that credibility when under pressure. Okay, lean on that backstory. Pivot if you need to, or to redirect something. But so because your voice may shake. All right, like it may happen. Like these are realities especially if you're not practicing and everything. All right. Another thing too, be ready. They may go silent, especially if they're good, like they're police or law enforcement or so. That's a tactic. I'm a prior cop back in the day in the military, and yeah, that's one thing in interviews. Oh yeah, or I've done inspecting as an inspector. Oh yeah, they talk to me. I get silent. And they'll want to talk more, It happens. It works that way.
So, Jeff,
yeah.
have you ever used a fake get out of jail free card in a situation where you can't talk your way out of things? I'm assuming.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
Well, I was going to say that the clarification of a fake get out of jail free card, I don't know about the ethics of faking your way out of a situation. I would assume you would want to have something from upper management.
Oh yeah,
that you can show. Yeah,
100%. Yep. And like my last engagement, I did. I had a thing in my front left pocket, and the way it just worked out was just like. It just worked out this one, I'm ready with that in case. Yeah. And that's all established when we're doing our calls and everything ahead of time. We make sure too, we get that letter. I mean, I make like 10 copies of that thing.
Oh, you
in my luggage with all my
safety.
tools. Oh yeah. I'm putting it in my luggage with all my tools. You name it. I'm carrying one on me in my binder, everything. So yeah, no, you will get that letter. You hold on that thing for dearly. Now, will I use it and be like, oh, here's my, and then like go off. No, you got me at that point. We don't proceed on. But it just worked out where our handler happened to come out right then and there, and it was just like, all right, and our handler was like, hey, they're good, and then
excellent. Okay, so you had someone in person who could vouch for you, also.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You will have a handler, point of contacts, the whole bit,
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So.
And then Mike was wondering, how can we work on these skills outside of engagements in a safe and legal way? So you mentioned improv earlier.
I got some other ways too. I'll get into. Yeah, I got you.
Okay,
I got
later.
you covered. Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's ahead of it. All right.
I got you covered. Yeah, because this is something you can do, practice at home, with other folks and everything. And yeah, they recommend it. Everyone, just as long as everyone's got consent, you're not just sending your friends, calling them up in the middle of the night, Although that would be pretty funny. So yeah.
Excellent.
But yeah, biggest thing on that last one, maintaining credibility, just take a deep breath, all that. You do have an actual second, to think, don't feel like you got to right away, because you're rushing yourself, but make sure you test and have that credible backstory. So techniques for real time. Okay. Improvisation. All right. So to get good at this and all, okay, and let's say something does happen, all right, you want to use active listening, all right? Focus on what they are saying. In your mind, and this is easier said than done. This is why you got to practice, Your mind's going to be racing a mile a minute, okay, when like doing this, and they're going to throw something, you're like, what? Just don't speak out of term, all right, or like let them speak, all right, because that's going to also say, hey, they're actually listening. Maybe, listen for keywords, concerns, objections, listen to for those things. Adjust your response in real time, okay, based on what that target reveals out of those keywords, concerns, and all that. So if the target says, hey, I'm in a meeting, like if you're trying to get something, of course, I'll be quick. Just need to confirm your VP access, okay, before, the next push or so, you know what I mean? Work with that, okay? Work around it. And there's ways, you especially when you get more experience, time, if you're practicing, you'll think of ways and things, to do this. So fallback phrases, right? We want to redirect that conversation if we can, right? These are short, prepared, neutral, phrases, just to redirect or stall if needed, especially if you when caught off guard, okay? It's going to happen. You're going to get caught off guard, all right? Again, this is going to give you that recontrol, all right? So examples are, oh, that's handled by such and such. I don't know much about that. Or I can pass it along for you. Or, that's a fair question. I'll have to follow up and, verify this step or something. There are ways to halt real quick, that conversation. Again, you'll find yours if you're doing this, your go-tos and everything over time as you practice. Now, here's another here. And I kind of mentioned this before. They want to maintain a natural response. All right. We want to avoid sounding all robotic, overly rehearsed, because there is such a thing. Again, you don't want to go from word to word. All right. You want a general gist. Okay. Because you want to make it sound natural and everything. Don't memorize those responses. Okay. So it's real people do pause, they hesitate, all right, and adapt. So your persona should too, right? At the end of the day. So an example is I'm here to do a MFA enrollment protocol, and then you can use hey, just helping out with this MFA reset thing. We're doing a rollout, you don't want to use how my first line there was perfect. It's like, I'm here to assist you with the MFA re-enrollment protocol. That sounds all robotic and garbage, I'm just be like, huh? Just helping out with this MFA reset thing. We're just doing a rollout. Cool. You know how one sounded more natural than the other? That's all I'm really getting at. And so then we want to use our tone and body language, right? Because that shows authority. Okay. Especially your tone and everything. Going back to that lady I once called, and I threw out that LinkedIn, person I researched and all, that's my supervisor. Oh, I said that convincingly and, with serious tone. Oh, no, yeah, Tina, I don't want to give her the last name there, but I remember her first name. And yeah, the way I did it, convincing, and I even silenced myself, I just shut up right after I said that. And there was a moment of silence, and she's like, oh, okay. So silence, yeah, sometimes can be golden, when you know how to use it and everything. So, but yeah, when you speak to these folks, speak with a purpose, control the pacing. You don't want to rush. And that's easy too, because, you're nervous and everything. We naturally want to, rush when we speak, but just try to relax, use that controlled pacing. Body language, even if you're on a phone doing vishing, I'll tell you works and all, because in a way it's like, how can I say it? I don't want to say it's like ESP or anything like that. But for instance, I'll do a thing, and I've learned this when in person, especially if you want to, tilt your head to the side, when you're speaking and everything, because it's a natural reaction to show we are not harmful, to that person or whatever, we're exposing our neck, our carotid artery there, and that's what, and I'll even do that when I'm on the phone, trying to get in. And it's a weird way, your tone and everything will change with it. And it just, you'll see, it's a really weird thing to explain, but that's something I like to do. Like I said, speak on the side there, exposing my neck. Even like I said, not in person, I'll still do it. All right, so that covers that. So at this point, we come to activity 5, where we do get together, role play. I was hoping someone would, share their pretext if we wrote one out tonight and all, but I understand, So when we actually, and this gets into how can we actually practice and everything. So there are ways you can do that, and I'm pointing. Let me. Where was that information? I just had it up. It was a good, and I wanted to make sure we did cover it. Pitfalls. All right. So, all right, how to practice. So you can do things on your own, like simulation exercises. All right. This is a great way to practice in a controlled environment. Yeah, let you experiment without getting arrested or anything like that. So obviously you're going to want to work with somebody, like a friend or whoever, obviously get their consent and all. But yeah, you can set up a simulation like, all right, this company, here's the objective, or, all that, or have a friend pick out the objective and all, right? You don't even know it. Get better practice. But for instance, in this case, we're going to set up, we're going to try and get physical access to, this secure area. But, there's a guard there, Gary, we figure out works either Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, but we want to then build that scenario out of that, you can then practice the different methods, over the phone, you can call up a friend or whatever and practice that, reading out that protect, make sure they act or whatever. Kind of like I mentioned with my improv coach before, gone ahead and done all that, you know. Obviously the importance of the feedback there. That's going to be like huge, you know, like you want good feedback, you know. Was there anything that worked well? What raised suspicion? Anything I need to refine, you know, you can go back and do that. So like tools and everything you do to help you do that, obviously, you know, role playing, you can mess around with mock exercises, stuff you can actually do on your own here. It really isn't that much of a stretch. Okay. And then, you know, obviously there's things you can do to build that confidence. You know, you said, you know, improv, all that, but, confidence is, you know, a skill to, you know, you got to build and everything. So, so like to help build that when you're doing your practicing, you're building your pretext, start small. All right. Start with simple pretext, you know, and as you know, test these out with your friends and, you know, hey, that sounds good or whatever, then you can gradually move up to more complex stuff. Okay. I'm going to beat this again. Learn to improvise, you know, improv if you can. I know people have mentioned Toastmasters. That's okay. Great if you want to do a workshop like this, or, you know, you want to do more talks and everything. I'd highly recommend it then. But, you know, it's all right. And then obviously, you know, that's going to help you stay calm under pressure, right? Because that's what it is. You're under mad pressure when doing this. So I hope that helps. I know that question was asked, you know, how can we practice this? You know, that's my way of, yeah. There are other things you can do. I know DEF CON, they have the social engineering village. You can go ahead and try to enter and compete that. I did it, you know, I highly recommend it a few years back. Yeah, you get some good experience out of that, you know, too, as well. If you get selected, you have to submit a video and all that. But they do also have cold calls after that competition. Usually that's Saturday, Sunday, where you can sign up on a list and practice. Yeah, cold calls and everything. That's pretty neat too, as well. So yeah, all right. All right, so yeah, we normally do that, but we'll go ahead and, because we're looking at time, we're doing good. All right, reflection and wrap up. So we did it, folks. We did it. So I have some key takeaways here with this. You know, as we went through this course and all, yeah, OSINT and human intelligence, they're critical for crafting realistic pretexts, right? That deep research and intelligence gathering. Tailor personas, all right? That's going to get you through. Don't be using those same ones, okay? And use it in ethical scenarios, obviously. Yeah, ethical considerations, all right? We want to make sure we are being responsible, doing things the right way when doing this, because it can have some damage on folks. You know, seriously can, as I pointed out. Always operate within that legal scope and defined by client agreements. All right. When in doubt, seek that scope out or ask questions. No doubt, like ask questions to the client. Even my last one, you know, we were asking questions. Hey, do you want, you know, do you want this and that? You know, and it's not a bad thing. It's you're clarifying, okay? Because that's what we're here for at the end of the day. We're doing what the client wants. Got to meet their objectives they present to us. And then, yeah, this goes without saying, avoid impersonating law enforcement or any authority figure like that, government, period. Okay, just don't do it. Even if the client says you can, they don't have that authority. I can tell you now. And then, yeah, if we do come across data, as I mentioned before, you know, anything like that, sensitive, you know, we got to respect those privacy laws within our country, or, you know, if you're in Europe, GDPR, stuff like that, because we are attached in ways to that. So yeah, we just gotta remain cognizant of that. So if we did these exercises, you know, there are some lessons, you know, I did want to ask, you know, while doing this, you know, what were some of the challenges and how were they addressed, you know, when doing this, you know, you're thinking, any skills, anything that you surprised yourself with, oh shoot, you know, that you didn't do, you know, expect to develop during this. And then what'd you find most valuable from the activities and everything? What'd you get out of it? Hopefully a lot, you know, if you do it later and everything. Yeah, hope you do. So with that, open up for question and answer. You know, we did it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Reach out with any questions at any time. You can find me on LinkedIn, right there, Discord, the Ghostface Killer, and then yeah, Blue Sky, you know, GFK Blue Sky. All that. I don't do much social media. I mean, I do with soccer accounts, investigation work, all that, but Yeah, personally, don't mess with much. So that is all I have. Thank you, and yeah, appreciate your time and everything.
Yeah, no, we want to say thank you to you. We appreciate you spending the time, and sharing knowledge with everybody. That's what Red Team Village is all about. We ask people to come and spend a couple hours, and it's real commitment. I have someone who does workshops. I just did one this morning. Someone who does workshops, know that there's lots of prep that goes into it, and it's much appreciated. There were lots of good questions, lots of good discussion in the chat. These are important things to know when it comes to social engineering and all the other stuff, physical pen testing, so it's important to know, because I remember the first time I ever did, I was sweating bullets, man, and I was freaking out.
I tell people it's like 90% prep and report writing and all that. It's like 10% execution, So.
Yeah, because like you were talking about with like the scenario planning and that kind of thing, like, before I went into it, I planned, I was like, all right, well, what if they say this, or, their boss is this person, they might bring that up, and if I did my research and I prepped, I had good answers if they asked me questions, and so it makes all the difference whenever you're doing this kind of stuff. So, yeah, for sure. No question.
Awesome.
So, just wanted to say thank you again. So Jeff will be at Layer 8 conference. What'd you say? This is a 3-hour at Layer 8?
Yeah, the one at Layer 8 will be 3 hour. I will have, and this is the next thing I do, adding a capstone at the end where we go after a target and draft up actual. So like during the class, they'll get practice, but then we're going to do a real thing at the end. Not our, we're really call these folks up and all, but yeah, practical. Yep. Application. So we'll judge and maybe give out some prizes for the best. We'll see. So.
Nice. I like it. Well, thank you again. We'll post links to the material that Jeff spun up, the VM and all that kind of stuff. This will be a recording on our YouTube channel, so everyone can come back. That's usually what happens. A lot more people always follow up and watch the replay. So we'll make sure that those links are there and active, so everybody can get that VM and all the other stuff. Thank you again. Desync, what do you think? Any last words before we close out?
Just relaying from folks in chat, a round of applause from everyone. Sounds
thank you.
Yeah, you had some excited recipients, and thank you again from us for coming out and doing this. We appreciate it.
Of course. So,
yeah,
cool.
We appreciate you. I'm going to warn you right now. Turn down your volume.
Yep, headphone warning.
Here we go.